All right, we'll go ahead and open the Planning Commission meeting for September 1st, 2022 at 6:30. And we'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll go over to Angela for a attendance roll call.
Commissioner Melcher? Here. Commissioner Wolfius?
Here.
Commissioner Parker?
Here.
Commissioner Stevens?
Here.
Commissioner Durney?
Present.
And Commissioner Lohman?
Here.
All right, so this is the portion in our meeting. If anybody has any public comment not on our agenda for this evening, this would be the time to come forward and state your name and business. As there are none, we'll move on to our meeting minutes for August 4th. Does anybody have any corrections, addendums?
I would move to approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes of August 4th, 2022, as presented.
Okay, we have a motion.
A second.
Motion and a, oh, yep.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. We're all in the same room, so is it okay just to, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So let's get right on to our first order of business. Dun-dun-dun. We're gonna go ahead and open the public hearing for application AXZC 2201 at 6:32. This is an application to annex approximately 174,896 square feet, 3.97 acre property located in the city's Sweet Home, in the city of Sweet Home's urban growth boundary into the city limits. Sweet Home. The application also requests to change the zoning of the property from Lynn County's urban growth area farm forest zone to the city of Sweet Home's low density R1 zone. All right. Do any of our commissioners have any personal bias in regards to this application?
No.
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 I have none. Any conflicts of interest?
No. No.
I have none as well. Any ex parte information?
No.
I have none. So we'll go ahead and go over to Angela for the staff report.
As Commissioner Parker stated, this is an application to annex approximately 174,896 square feet located in the city of Sweet Home's urban growth boundary. If the proposed annexation is approved, it would modify the city limit line to incorporate the subject property. The applicant is seeking annexation in order to include Russell Tract 31 property described in tax lot 38 and connect to city water services. Then, based on the FEMA map, the subject property is not located in the 100-year floodplain. It does not contain wetlands. I know there's a difference. It says we have it subject is currently served by city water.
Yes, that's my apologies. That was my error. The property has city sanitary sewer service available, but is not currently connected. My bad.
And it fronts along 47th Avenue and Kalmaya. The city is located within the subject property is located within the city's UGB. It would bring the subject property into city limits. The Planning Commission will consider this matter at today's meeting, and you will either recommend or deny to the City Council in your vote. The provisions of Sweet Home Municipal Code 17104010 do not require that this annexation proposal be submitted to the electors of the city for their approval or rejection. The Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on September 1st, 2022, and will make a recommendation to the City Council. The City Council will hold a public hearing on this matter on September 13th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Notice of both public hearings will be published in the New Era newspaper on July 20th, 2022 and August 31st, 2022. Notice of the public hearing was posted in 4 locations: City Hall, City Library, Post Office, and Community Bulletin at the northeast corner of 18th Avenue and Long Street. If this annexation is approved, the city will follow the procedures for adopting an ordinance and providing notification to affected parties as described in Sweet Home Municipal Code, ORS 222. The subject property is contiguous to the city limits of Sweet Home to the south and to the north. The north property line borders Kamaya Street, which is within the jurisdiction of the city of Sweet Home. However, the southern portion of the subject property is located in Lynn County. This is considered contiguous under ORS 222.1111. The city of Sweet Home does not provide specific criteria for annexations. However, as discussed below, the City of Sweet Home Comprehensive Plan requires that upon annexation that the zoning of the subject property be changed to the city zoning classification that is consistent with the Sweet Home Comprehensive Plan map. The application for an annexation is therefore linked to the application for a zone change. For this reason, staff recommends that these applications be either both approved or both denied. This annexation proceeding was initiated at the request of the property owner. This annexation decision will be made in conformance with the city's acknowledged comprehensive plan and therefore would comply with the Oregon statewide planning goals pursuant to OAR 660-014-0060. Before I move on to the zone change, was the annexation, do you have any questions about the annexation portion of it?
On attachment A or attachment or the map on the back side of the applicant's application, the property is outlined, but it's not clear to me the relationship of the UGB and the city limits line.
Yes, and unfortunately, and I apologize, I should have probably tried to figure out how to take the red off. The UGB is that pink line that's on there, and it's kind of covered up by the red. And it goes down to the south there. It follows that triangle lot. It kind of goes around the lower portion of that property and then goes down to that lower triangle. So I apologize because it blends in with the red and you can't see the two of them together. So
I think
so the northern half, the I guess you would call it maybe the flagpole portion of it, that's in the city, and the square portion of the south is actually the county piece.
Oh.
And the property
Okay.
directly to the south of the square piece, is that also city? The large field?
The large field, yes. And the triangle, the woody piece, no. The woody
So-
piece is in the county.
So the pink is urban growth boundary and city limits?
It's the city limits, it's within the urban growth boundary. So you can explain this better than I can.
Yes, that pink, the purple line there is both.
So I'm not able to discern the colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, now the yellow that you're pointing to right there, those are the property lines. And they're also, in that area, the city limit and the urban growth boundary. That purple line that's on the property is the city limit line. It's just graphically underneath the yellow lines of the properties.
Oh.
Angela, based on conversation, is
Yeah,
that,
so I just tried to
is
share my
that kind of
screen.
what you were?
So this is, it goes down, the county line follows this. Goes that way. It's a weird little.
So the
Section
only
right
part
there.
that's touching the county from is the
it's
bottom
just
right
this
corner.
little piece.
Yeah.
On the
I'll
zoning
see if
map,
I-
you
I'll
can
see if I
see,
can bring it up.
On the zoning map?
flip that over.
Yeah, so
Yeah, it's difficult.
this is county
I
and
didn't
this
even
is
see
county.
that purple
Everything
line.
else in here is city,
Yeah,
except
that's
that's
on the-
county as well.
On the next map, it may be
Just
clear.
over annexing.
Yep.
So
Kinda
everything around it is,
sanitized.
yeah, it's kind of like a little island.
Yep. This is city. But that's county and these three.
Oh, which is urban growth.
the urban growth boundary follows the city limits. So basically, like Commissioner Melcher said, it's adding this piece, so this would get squared off.
Oh, yeah, good. Okay.
It would be the missing puzzle piece in the corner.
Okay.
The one my kids always hide from me. That corner piece.
You see
Every time.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, that information is helpful.
Okay. Thank you, and I apologize, I didn't realize I need to change my colors apparently.
And I'm colorblind, so it wouldn't have mattered.
Well, for you.
That's why I wear such exciting clothes.
Your shirt's pink today.
What?
Okay, so
Not
now
before.
we'll move on to the zone change. Again, apologize for that, for reminding me to change my colors on the map.
Yeah.
All right. So the comprehensive plan designation of the property is low-density residential, shown on attachment B. The goals and policies of the comprehensive plan are implemented through the application of zoning that implements the comprehensive plan map designation of the property. The low-density residential zone implements the low-density residential comprehensive plan map designation. Based on the review of the Sweet Home Local Wetlands Inventory Map and the National Wetlands Inventory Map, the subject property does not contain inventoried wetlands. As a result, it would not be appropriate to apply the natural resource zone to the property. The subject property is located outside the 100-year floodplain. Based on the above findings, the application of the R1 zone to the subject property would be consistent with the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan, and the application complies with that criteria. The subject property is located within the city's urban growth boundary, which has been identified as the planned location for the urban development of the city. The subject property is contiguous to the Sweet Home city limits. For these reasons, staff finds that the application complies with the criteria. The engineering department provided comments to this annexation and zone change proposal, which are included in section 2 of the staff report. There is a correction to this, and Joe alluded to that it is not connected to.
Correct.
Yeah.
Not connected,
So that.
but available.
Yes, it's not connected, but it is available. The applicant is seeking to include Russell Tract 31 property described in tax lot 3800 and connect to city water. Costs associated with the extension of the water and other services will be responsibility of the property owner. The subject property contains approximately 3.97 acres, and if approved, it would be possible to divide the property into lots as small as 8,000 square feet through a future subdivision or partition application process. The applicant has not requested a subdivision or partition at this time. If the applicant seeks to divide the property in the future, approval of those applications may require a sidewalk or road improvements as required under the Sweet Home Municipal Code. A host of other development permits may also be required upon future development of the property. However, no specific development has been proposed at this time. The subject property contains one single-family dwelling and accessory structures. Utilities and services could be efficiently provided to the subject property. The criteria does not apply to the zone change. This criteria does not apply to the zone change because the proposal does not require an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan map. The comprehensive plan map designates the subject property as low-density residential, and the applicant is proposing to apply the corresponding low-density residential R1 zone. The proposed zoning is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, which has been acknowledged to be consistent with the statewide planning goals. Conclusions and recommendations. Pursuant to Sweet Home Municipal Code 17-104-010B, the role of the Planning Commission is to review the proposal for annexation, hold such hearings as it deems proper, make such findings of fact as it deems proper, and make recommendations to the City Council. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt the findings listed in Section 3 above. Based on those findings, staff recommends that the Planning Commission move to recommend that the City Council approve annexation AX-ZC 22-01, which is option 1 below. Options after opening the public hearing and receiving testimony, the Planning Commission's options include the following. 1, move to recommend that the City Council approve application AX-ZC 22-01. 2, move to recommend that the City Council deny application AX-ZC 22-01, or 3, other. Moving forward, the City Council will hold a public hearing on September 13th, 2022, and will consider the recommendation of the Planning Commission. If this application is approved, the City Council will read and adopt an ordinance to formally annex the property and apply the proposed city zoning. Staff would provide notice of the decision as required by Sweet Home Municipal Code and ORS. If there's any questions? Thank you for your patience. I'm trying to read from the computer and not paper anymore. It's throwing me off a little.
That's okay. Anybody on the commission have any questions for staff?
No question.
All right, so at this time, we'd like to invite our applicant to come forward, if you would like to. Once you've been seated, if you could state your name and address for the record.
My name is Catherine E. Thrash, and my address is 1118 47th Avenue here in Sweet Home.
Right, and the purpose of your application.
Purpose of my application is the fact that I purchased the property in 1995, and the septic was the existing, and it's failed, and I need city services for the sewer and the water. With the drought conditions, my water suffers this time of year. The well just can't keep up. Everybody in that area is having that problem, but everybody else is in the city. So it's the previous owner had fought hard to keep it out of the city, and I'm not adverse to it being in the city. So I'm very excited to get it in the city and have reliable water and sewer.
Excellent.
Had you talked to the county about septic repair?
No, I understand that
They would have directed you here.
because it's so close to the
within
city,
Proximity, yeah.
I have to come to the city.
Yep. Okay,
You can't repair it, can't fix it, can't put it in a new one.
right. Yeah. Welcome.
Yeah, so
Welcome
I
to
guess
city
it's-
limits.
if it's not, if the city says no, I guess I don't have sewer or water. So it's kind of a weird situation.
Yeah.
So
Anybody else have any questions for the applicant?
What are your future plans for the property?
well, my future plans for the property are to legally get 2 tax lots. Russell Track 31 is the lower leg of the property. And when I purchased the property, it was not being taxed at all. And so when I filed my purchase, they said, oh, there's more than 3 acres here. We need to tax this. And so it was all in one big tax lot. And it precludes any future development to have it that way. So I'm going to try to get it zoned or separated. So the top piece is the 3 acres, and the Russell Track 31 is separated again in tax lots. So in the future, should something happen and I need to sell something, I can.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for coming down. We don't get a lot of applicants that actually show up. So thank you. It's a lot easier to answer and ask questions when you're here. Any other questions?
I'm good.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going through the motions. This will be the time for any proponent testimony, those wishing to speak in favor of the application. As there are no other folks around, any opposition, opponent testimony, those wishing to speak in opposition of the application. As there are none, any neutral testimony, testimony of those just wishing to be heard, not in favor or against. As there are none, we will close the public hearing for application AX ZC 2201 at 6:49 for discussion amongst the Planning Commission. Yeah, I really, I don't know if anybody's got anything to say. I mean, it's just, it's a missing corner. It's been neglected. She's correcting something. She's in a pickle.
Plus, I don't want to see her have to carry water.
Have a porta potty
Yeah,
installed.
porta potty and stuff, no. I wouldn't want to
No.
see that on anybody.
And it does kind of, again, it's another case where we're being given the opportunity to sanitize zoning, UGB, all of that. So
Plus, we'll get some more textiles, won't we?
well, somebody will. They're still taking mine. All right, so if there's no
Motion
further
for opinions?
opinions, discussions, motions,
I don't see any reason why not to do it.
yeah.
So, and just to remind the commission that you are making a motion to recommend.
Correct.
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd move to recommend that the city council approve application AXZC 22-01.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. So the next step is city council. All right. Well, moving on. So are we reopening our, okay. Buried back there somewhere. Not really anything with it.
So I'll just read the memo once you
All right, so we'll go ahead and reopen our public hearing at 6:51 for the Mountain First Street right-of-way dedication. Angela, would you like to read the?
Does the commission want me to reread the original memorandum, or can I just go to the?
New.
I just the new one.
So Blair is unable to make it, but he's been having conversations with Mosaic since the last meeting, and so this is the memo that Blair provided. I will read that. As you are aware, Mosaic Development Services, the owner of the Wiley Creek Assisted Living Facility and the Wiley Creek Memory Care Facility that is now under construction, are seeking to dedicate a public right-of-way to the city that is currently two private roads, known as Mountain Fir Street and Mountain Fir Court. When the existing infrastructure was built, it was constructed to meet city specifications so that it could eventually be dedicated over to the city. When the Planning Commission discussed the matter at their August 4th meeting, commissioners expressed two concerns: maintenance of the landscaping on the south side of the roadway and the construction of a sidewalk on the south side of the roadway where none currently exists. Staff has investigated options and discussed the matter with Mosaic, and I believe we have come to an agreement that meets all the Planning Commission's concerns. First, Mosaic has agreed to retain a strip of land on the south side of the roadway bordering the strip of land owned by the neighboring homeowners association. By retaining this strip of land, Mosaic would also be retaining responsibility to maintain the landscaping on the south side of the roadway. Second, given the lack of any development on the south side of Mountain Fir Street, city staff believe that a sidewalk is not necessary at this time. City practice has been to require sidewalks on streets where development is present and to allow developers to enter into development agreements with the city to construct such sidewalks when development occurs. We have suggested such an agreement to Mosaic, and they have indicated that they are willing to commit to building a sidewalk on the south side of Mountain Fir when future development occurs on that side of an extension of the street. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the dedication of Mountain Fir Street and Mountain Fir Court under these conditions.
So the possibility of them actually developing on the south side of the street is non-existent.
And what it means is, so they'll develop the sidewalk. There is the property to the east that Mountain Fir runs into, and there could potentially be development over there. And at that point, if that is developed, and that's when the sidewalk would go in. I think that was when it said the south side of Mountain Fir. I think that was an error on his part. It's actually the east end.
The
of
east
Mountain
end of Mountain
Fir.
Fir. Right. And do they currently own that property as well?
Yes.
They do.
Yep.
And would that be attached to the sale of that property in the future? that developer, whoever owned that property, would be responsible for the sidewalk on Mountain Fir.
It will, so according to, and unfortunately Blair's not here, but according to the conversations I had with him, Mosaic, they will do the development agreement so that if it's what we do for most people when there is chunks of sidewalk that aren't there, but if there's going to be development, then they enter an agreement that when that gets triggered, they have to put sidewalks in. So that's better than I can, but.
Well, that was a pretty quick and simple way to do it, but
So with that verbiage, it would
Yes.
be attached to the future owner of that property if they decide to sell it.
yes, it will.
So when this was developed originally, if it were to have been a city street, would the sidewalk have been put in on the south?
Originally, yes, because there was no, except for the property line there, but there was no subdivision adjacent to it. It predates that Mimosa Street, or Mimosa Circle, I mean. But if it had been a public street, yes, it would have. I do not remember if that was a planned development style there for the assisted living facility. But the provision was made there in the width of the property and the location of the curb line so that it could have one. But
And-
at the time, did not.
And in looking at, when I looked at the property, there was a planned development overlay attached to that. So when I was looking at different zoning stuff, and when that was, I think it must have been when it was developed long before my time, so.
In 1996.
So who initiates the development agreement? You said Mosaic would initiate that.
Well, it's actually something that the community development department here writes up. I do. And it's a recorded document with their signature lines on it that puts them on the hook for the development at the time if development happens. It's a large, really nice, fairly easy to get to parcel of land on the east end. So I can envision it happening.
So that would be attached to the document that memorializes making Mountain Fir a city street.
Yes, it can be made a reference to that, and it is also attached to the property at the east end of the street. The area that's behind the Mountain Fir Court, that large, odd-shaped property there. It gets attached to both, but it would also be included in the agreement.
I just wouldn't want it to get lost in the process.
Right.
So that's what I'm asking about your process, how that works.
Right. It generally happens at the time that the developer comes in with their development plans, and while permits are issued, development agreements like this happen.
And so that would be when Mosaic has plans for the east end of the property, but not before.
Well, actually, in this particular case, it will, because they're all the same owner, and the question has come up right now, it will be attached at the time of the current development. And
Okay.
they will be, all parties seem to be in acceptance of that.
Thanks.
I guess my thing is I hate for us to basically adopt or take on one more thing that's just not complete. And have to wait who knows how long before the sidewalk actually is completed.
Right.
It seems like with this development, the sidewalk on that side of the street is a negligible fee for a building and structure this size when they put it in.
We have a lot of streets in Sweet Home that have sidewalks just on one side.
Correct.
And then once development is initiated with the planned development, then the other side will go in, and sometimes it's just a one-sided. So this is not an unusual circumstance here in the city. So
But I kind of agree with Jeff, just because there are places where there is only one sidewalk on one side of the street. that's really not what we would like. It seems like that's not what we would like. And so bringing it up in this regard, just to say we prefer, but I don't know if that's practical or useful in this circumstance.
I'd rather the city inherit something that's a complete product than
I
a
mean,
partial thing. I
Me
mean,
too.
I'm gonna give my son a car, but it's got no wheels. It's still a car, but it's not functional.
And you know, that's such a nice area. I'd like to see sidewalks on both. It's just because it's a well-kept maintenance area right there, and it's,
Right. In cases throughout the city, when there's a development on one side of the street, that side of the street gets the development. The opposite side is the responsibility of the opposite side property owner.
But currently, this is all the same property.
This is currently all the same property. Whether you draw a distinction between a service level usage is for the commission to decide. But the service level usage of a pedestrian is very high on the north side of the street, very low on the south side of the street.
And I'm sure the commissioners are aware that that sidewalk will dead end on both ends. It will not loop around and connect to especially on the east end, it'll just end. And there's not another, they'll have to cross across the street to get to the other side. So
They'll cross the dead end street.
I expressed some concerns last time that we were addressing this, but it seems to me, well, first of all, it's kind of an odd arrangement to have a whole street with all the backyards facing the street. That probably should have never happened in the first place, but it has, which means, in my opinion, that a south side sidewalk probably is not going to be used. But it also would seem to imply that that road is in the particular interest of Mosaic. And if they are willing to accept the maintenance and the landscaping on both sides of the road, I would be in favor of going ahead. I am one that generally prefers to see roads owned by the city. And if this road has been constructed and meets the city standards, that would be the way to go.
What I see on this is I ride my bicycle a lot on 49th, and I see people walking from the assisted living facilities all the way along that sidewalk and clear down to Highway 20. Now what you have is you have a bunch of driveways that people have to walk over versus if they were to walk on the south side of the street, they'd have a sidewalk that could walk a lot more easily from walking over driveway entrances with cars coming in and out. And plus the slopes on those driveways are always not flat like a sidewalk is, which could be a deterrent to older people.
you know, that old saying too, build it, they will come. And I just felt too, like if they did put the sidewalk, people will use it. I know it's going to dead end, but I think some people will use the sidewalk.
Well, and keep in mind too, it will dead end for now.
Right.
Anybody else have any questions for staff or discussion? Should we close the public hearing again? Okay, so we will go ahead and close the public hearing for the Mountain First Street dedication right-of-way at 7:04 for discussion amongst the council further. I just think with the amount of money they're spending on this thing, it's a good community gift. Give them the sidewalk.
just to remind the commission, this is again a recommendation and you can put conditions on it. So it's to recommend to council. It has to go to council also.
Correct.
some of you want to see a sidewalk. But I'm going to make the motion that we accept the proposal, including Mosaic's responsibility to maintain the landscaping on both sides of the sidewalk.
So Commissioner Wolfius, is that as presented, your motion to recommend as presented, or including the sidewalk?
No, not including the sidewalk as presented.
Okay.
We'll see where it goes.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Could I just make a clarification?
Your mic's on.
Could I just make a clarification that we're talking about the east end of the property, not how Blair had described it in the memo?
The development, if future
Yeah.
development on the east end.
Yeah, because
Correct.
that wasn't in his memo. Just want
Correct.
to make sure that that correction is made. I'm sorry.
You're good.
So it died for lack of a second.
I believe at this point you are correct. Anybody else wish to make a motion?
Somebody can make a motion with the sidewalk.
We can make
I'm
it.
gonna try to make a crack at one, I think.
Okay.
So I would move that the commission recommend to city council approval of Mosaic's proposal in the memo dated September 1st, 2022, which includes maintenance of any landscape on the south side of the roadway and the construction of a sidewalk on the south side of the roadway where none currently exist in should have cleared this out, in conjunction with any future development on the east property at the end of Mountain Fir. Did I get everything in that?
You want to add that they would
And
maintain-
direct city staff to prepare a development agreement to be signed by the city and Mosaic.
and that they would maintain any landscaping on that side.
Yep, they will. I did say that first, yeah.
Okay, do we need to,
So for clarification, that motion is to postpone the construction of the sidewalk until the time at which the property to the east end
Develops.
of the road is developed.
Yes.
And maintaining any landscape.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
I
Aye.
Opposed?
I-
nay?
Nay.
If it's a tie.
Well, we got what, 3 to,
3 and 2.
or Danae, you know, too.
Okay, let's go by roll call vote. I think
Okay.
that would be easier. Okay. Commissioner Melcher,
yes.
Commissioner
No.
Wolfius,
No,
Commissioner Parker,
No.
Commissioner Stevens,
No.
Commissioner Journey,
Yes.
Commissioner Loman.
No.
So a no's, it is a no. Does not pass. I will find out the next steps for the dedication, and we will get back to you at the next meeting. So,
Just to clarify, did the naysayers, you do want the sidewalk now?
I want it now.
Yeah, I do too.
There's just so many instances in our town, and I know that it happens here and there, but there are so many instances where we have onesie twosies. And for somebody to come in and give an entire street to the city, let's give the city a complete product. They're gonna spend
Put the
millions
ribbon
of
on.
dollars
the
building
ribbon
this
on the
facility. Just get it done.
Exactly.
Be a good neighbor. So,
Yep.
They're getting out of maintaining the street.
yeah.
So we need to get something in return.
Plus, who knows how long this property will be developed? I mean, I've worked for companies that have properties like this and they've been 40 years and they still haven't done anything, but they're promising to build something. So who knows when it'll happen? It may happen.
I
But
think we would just have more impact on that
speculation.
sidewalk once that develops.
Yeah, but when
We'll
does
see.
it develop?
I don't know.
Your motion included the sidewalk.
At a
At later,
future time, a development agreement at a future time. When this property develops.
If it develops.
Yes.
All right, so I guess we'll go at this point. Is there any future upcoming staff? reports?
No, I mean, we have a lot of building permits coming in still, a lot of site plan reviews. Don't have any real big projects in the planning side of it, but we do have a lot going on in building. We also lost my train of thought trying to figure out what we're supposed to do next for the other one.
Any,
Not of this month. No, yes, there is.
Were we gonna
Yes, it's the buildable, that's.
Yeah.
There's the buildable land use.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Meeting is on the
Those are-
15th, and then directly after that is the open house. So it'll be a short meeting just to introduce the buildable lands and inventory, and then we will close the hearing and the meeting, and then there'll be an open house to just talk.
When is that?
The 15th, the second meeting this month.
So will that be at our standard time of 6:30?
Correct. Yes. And I'll send out the package just like everything else. So
Angela, is it possible to reopen that hearing? I would be willing to change my vote and include the sidewalk so they can move ahead.
We'd still have a tie and can we
include the
pass a
sidewalks.
motion?
That's what he voted for.
Can we pass a motion
So
if we don't
Joe
have
and I were just
unanimous
talking about
approval?
that because I can't get a hold of Blair, so I'm
Mhm.
not
I think it has to be unanimous. Not unanimous, but
Yeah.
majority.
to open it back up.
Majority to pass a motion,
It
and
does.
we would not have that. But if you want to get it on record,
In other words, if somebody made a motion, included the sidewalk as part of the acceptance of the street
To be built immediately or to be built
to be built
at a future?
immediately. Yeah.
I
That
think-
may accommodate Mosaic's plans.
I would hate to hold them up,
Yeah.
but
This was,
Well, I'm-
that's what we were discussing.
Yeah.
So, I guess, okay, so I'm not sure if this is the legal way to do this, meeting wise, but we could open it back up, have a discussion, you could vote, and then if that isn't the way to do it, we can let you know at the 15th, and we might have
we'll have
to.
to redo it.
I don't have anybody I can call to confer with right now, so I will leave it up to your discretion of what you want to do.
Well, if we can do it and get it on the record, and then if it's admissible, then it's done, and if not, we'll do it again.
Okay.
Okay,
so I'd make a motion to reopen the public hearing for the Mountain Fir dedication of right-of-way.
I second it.
okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I-
Okay, opposed? All right, so discussion will commence again on the Mountain Fir right-of-way at 7:14.
So I think you made a good case to say we want the whole package. We want the whole enchilada.
I'm glad I asked. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that just gets me to think, Henry, about my vote.
Mhm.
And yet, I like to be a good neighbor. I like to be friendly to development when possible. So I'm not really sure how to weigh the pros and cons of wanting the whole package and also wanting to facilitate Mosaic's development.
The street is such that, it essentially serves Mosaic. I mean, it could have gone down the middle of their property, but it happens to be at one side. So I will make the motion that we request, not request, that we'd expect a sidewalk on the south side at the time that the street is accepted by the city, knowing that all other standards of construction have been met.
To be presented to the city council.
And present it to the city
Is that
council,
including a strip of property on the other side of the sidewalk for them to mow?
including landscaping. This road is serving their purpose. So yes, the motion will include a sidewalk and the acceptance of the responsibility to maintain landscaping on both sides of the road.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Can we do roll call vote?
Yes,
just
we
to-
can do a roll call to
just wanna
clarify.
make Sure.
Yep.
Okay, Commissioner Loman,
Yes.
Commissioner Journey,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Parker,
Yes.
Commissioner Wolfius,
Yes,
and Commissioner Melcher.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
6 votes, no nays, so motion passes.
All right.
So we need to close it.
So we will close that hearing back at 7:17. And are we good with staff updates?
So yes.
Thanks for bringing that.
All right, so at that point, we will adjourn the planning commission meeting for September 1st at 7:18.
Good job, Jan.